A pointless tech tree vehicle has actually made its way into a god tier one. This is the Grille 15, the German tier 10 tank destroyer. It's recently been buffed with one of Wargaming's massive buff updates where they missed out a lot of vehicles that could have probably done with a lot of love, nerfed some of the ones that definitely didn't really need it, and yeah, didn't change any of the broken premiums. But either way, the Grille 15, this is the German tier 10 tank destroyer that features a 750 alpha damage gun. Now this thing used to have a yaw limit, which was that, you know, you couldn't fully use the turret of this thing like you could with the Borsig, like you could with the Waffle Panzer IV. And so you ended up with a tank that really wasn't that good because you can't do what some of the other vehicles in the game can do, and it really left it with a sour taste in the mouth. But what Wargaming have done with this tank is they've improved this vehicle quite considerably. They have buffed the camo of the Grille 15 to make it more like what you would see with the tier 9 and the tier 8 in the tech tree, as well as actually going for some increases in kind of other statistics of the tank, very minor stuff. But then they gave it a fully traversable turret, which means this thing can now turn all the way around, and that makes a massive difference. It takes away one of the negatives of playing the Grille 15 and opens up a whole new sort of playstyle when you do play this tank. We have some replays coming up in this video, so stay tuned. But I wanted to give the rundown on the Grille first so that you guys know exactly what this tank is all about, what they've done to it, and why this tank is now actually one of the top tank destroyers you can get at tier 10 without having to pay a ton of money for something like a Turan. And in fact, this tank is a rival now of the Turan in terms of, at least now we have a tech tree alternative that isn't going to cost you like £100 or something ridiculous. But the Grille 15, 1800 hit points, 750 alpha, brilliant AP penetration as your standard round. You have incredible premium rounds with 334 pen. Not the best of a tier 10 tank destroyer, but I mean, with 334 pen, you'll pretty much go through everything that you'll need to in the game, so that's a bonus. And then you've got HE rounds with 950 alpha with 75 pen, which is useful against those super lightly armoured vehicles, but I haven't taken a ton in this thing as it's quite lower than the 850 alpha damage guns in the game that have, you know, something like 90 penetration on something like the E4, and yeah, 85 with the Jaegeru, for example. But it's worth having a couple. I'd probably actually put 2 in the vehicle, so we'll do that now, just in case you do come and get up against those lightly armoured tanks. But Grille 15, 60 kilometers an hour, make it very nice on the move. Dispersion of this tank is, yeah, pretty awful. But what happens with it now is that because you've got the fully traversable turret, you're not having to move the hull as much to be able to track a target, which is one of the gripes that this tank had. If you had to, you know, move your tank at all, the bloom was horrendous. But now you don't have to move the tank or the hull armor of the tank in order to actually track someone using the main turret. So yeah, very nice indeed. Of course, the way we've set it up, we've gone with advanced loader, advanced optics, and advanced concealment. This is a common kind of tank destroyer build that really relies on just dealing damage and remaining hidden, which the Grille is definitely capable of doing now with the improved still concealment that this tank offers. Yeah, it can be really lethal. You know, you can stay back, you can hold back, you can put off a couple rounds at the beginning of the game against people that are never going to spot you. It feels really good. And so let's jump into the gameplay now so I can show you exactly what this tank actually looks like with the fully traversable turret that we had on a live stream yesterday. And so we start off with the first one on airfield, and I want to get your opinions on the Grille 15. You can see me testing out the fully traversable turret. Yeah, this is something definitely novel, unique, and only featured within World of Tanks console, which is great. So at this point I'm kind of just messing around. I'm not actually focusing on where I should be going in the game, but instead of going in, obviously Grille 15 not particularly great in the game when you do try and fight on a corner. Obviously it's a tank destroyer with no armor, and most people know to fire HE at this thing if they do see it. But what we're going to do is come up to this location. It's a great starting location in the game, but often dries up very, very quickly, where you don't get a whole lot of shots, and so you have to move if you want to have good games. When you do come to here, for the most part, unless of course the team on the enemy team just completely steamroll this flank and push towards you, at which point you can farm quite nicely, but that usually happens in that middle of the game anyway, so you'll kind of figure out that, you know, either way you're going to have to move at some point, or you're just going to be able to farm. So either way, 900 damage done. We set an EBR 105 on fire. Nice little start to my journey within the Gorilla 15. You can see the super quick aiming time, and in fact you can see just how accurate we are with the Gorilla 15, which is what it's all about. It's supposed to be this super good sniper which sacrifices that alpha damage that something like an E4 has, sacrifices the armor, and so would get a good gun. And previously, before this update, it didn't really get that, because, you know, you were limited in how far you could move the turret, which was a big problem with the Gorilla. And now I'm pushing in here. We're hoping to get one on the AMX 13105, of which I don't know why auto in there got very lazy, and the AMX is now just going to try and clip us, which is brilliant. He auto aiming me maybe, or he's free aiming, but we're going to actually aim this one, and there you go. Bye bye Mr. AMX. Although I did lose 800 hit points that we definitely didn't need to, considering we knew he was coming and he had no idea that we were there. We should have just actually aimed. But there you go. You know, we're all human, we all make mistakes, and hopefully we're not going to do that again in the next gameplay. But the Minotaur is up on the hill. This is a tank that actually was a bit too overpowered, apparently, according to Wargaming. So they nerfed it, they gave it a longer interclip reload, and they also made it just slightly worse in a couple of other areas. Unfortunately, for some reason, the 705A cannot drive, which is just perfect, exactly what you want from when you're trying to aim a Minotaur who's about to poke you. But either way, we move on. Don't know why the 705A is up here, but he is. He gets a free shot on the Kranvang. I don't know if he penned him, but we set him on fire. That's 2 fires within 1 game and within a couple of shots of damage. So yeah, I guess my luck was super high this game. But we've got ourselves a IS-22. We've got a chisel down there. Hopefully we can get one on the chisel. I think I'm just going to over peek him and get a shot in here. Don't really need to fully aim with that one. It should be a pretty fairly bog standard result to actually pen him. We've got Ricky Tiki Tave in the Nemesis here. We're both playing together on stream. I highly recommend checking out some of the streams when they do go live, or checking back on the stream. You could see what we were talking about during the game. Coming in now to finish off the T95, the FV, the Chieftain T95, and unfortunately he does finish off Ricky just before, so I guess you know, the Cold War players not quite accustomed to playing the proper game mode of World of Tanks and getting taken out, but you know, here's what it is. Guess they're used to YOLOing in a little bit too much. And with that being said, we're up to 4.9k damage. Hopefully we can carry Ricky. He definitely carried me in a couple of games as well, so it's only right and fair that I would try in this one. Now, the Minotaur looks like he's going to push, so I'm just going to pre-aim. Hopefully he comes round. At this point, you could load those premium ammunition rounds and probably go through the Minotaur and some of the strong parts of the armor. The 277, I don't know why he came backwards, well, back out after retreating, but he did, and that gives us a free shot, so I'm not going to complain. Up to 5 enemies taken out so far, and with the Minotaur, we have, of course, got a heavy over here, and we've also got, a Death Star. Oh god, please, please, oh my lord, I think we just had a shave just come past us there. I think we were basically 1 second away from being destroyed. I don't know why he didn't fully aim there. I have terrible reverse speed in the Gorilla 15, so be aware of that if you are coming in. And then we get super lucky that the Minotaur doesn't aim. We do have an AMX 13105 behind us, who for some reason we actually managed to snap. Number 2 of the topic of today's video is auto aim should definitely not be able to do this. The AMX is struggling here because he doesn't know whether to actually YOLO me or whether to kind of stay back and hold off. He decides to stay back and hold off, which, you know, not a bad play, to be honest. But up to 6.8k damage now for us. And considering he's backed off, let's go chase him. And yeah, bye-bye. I think it's time for me to get my top gun. And there you go, up to 6.8k damage with 6 enemies taken out as well. But there's still a TD in the background. We're never going to get there before our light tank just goes and finishes him off. It's actually both of our light tanks just circle strafing around the FV215B183. Not quite the same as the Gorilla 15, but I would say the Gorilla 15 probably being way better than the Death Star. But either way, I've really enjoyed playing the Gorilla 15. It is an actually incredible tank, and certainly after a couple of games playing this tank, it feels so much better. It's so much more flexible, and you feel like you can play it much like the previous tanks in the tech tree, albeit this is much faster, and so is just a flat out benefit over playing the lower tier ones when you do go up the tier. So really good tank. I think definitely if you haven't played the Gorilla recently, you should try it out. It really does feel amazing to play, and it's really nice to see that Wargaming did actually buff a tank that needed the buffs, even though they missed out a ton of vehicles that I was really disappointed that they missed out and could have definitely done, and yet again focusing on tanks that probably didn't need the buffs. There we go, that's Wargaming for you. But of course, my thing with the Gorilla 15, I like that they've changed a tech tree tank. They've shaken up the tank destroyer meta at tier 10, which I think is brilliant and offers a new unique playstyle that the Gorilla originally was intended to provide, but couldn't really do it properly because the aiming was just terrible. You know, the actual ability to kind of move your turret was just not there, and so then you had to move the hull, and when you did that, the dispersion of the Gorilla was awful, and so yeah, it ended up with you being less accurate than what you were intending to be when it comes to this German sniper. But I'll be interested to see whether or not you've played the Gorilla 15. Let me know if you have, or if you've seen it in the game. What do you think? Is it too strong now, or do you think it's in a brilliant place where you think that they've balanced it quite well? My final conclusion on the Gorilla 15, I feel like this tank is in a great place. It's good, but it's not incredible. It has weak points with the Gorilla 15 and certainly gets less alpha than a lot of the other TDs. It is possible to detect this thing, and yeah, it is quite sluggish when you try and actually turn and stuff like that. So I think it's a well balanced to a degree, but probably on the better side. It's a competitive tank and probably one of the most competitive tank destroyers from the tech tree that you can get in the game. So yeah, thumbs up from me. I love the Gorilla 15. I think with the changes have made this tank so much better. But hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like the video, and if you want to see what the Gorilla 15 looked like before they buffed it, then take a look at this video on screen where we recently played it about a week ago. So yeah, you can see what it was like before the buffs and after them, albeit I may have got more damage in the previous, but there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one with a video about some more of the buffs coming up soon where we check out some of the other ones, and I'll see you there. Goodbye.